Okay, so Luke Skywalker showing up at the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian was completely mind-blowing. For me, it's the best scene in a Star Wars property since the original trilogy, and there's a number of reasons why it works so well. Up until this point, Disney's handling of Star Wars had been mixed to say the least, and The Last Jedi has had more back and forth over it than whether Han shot first or not. The sequel trilogy was a bit McClunky, and the constant changing of direction left a lot of the most beloved characters feeling like they didn't get the send-off that they deserved. Luke Skywalker was definitely one of these, and to see him tossing lightsabers away, drinking blue milk, and looking like Nick Nolte made many fans feel like our last memories of the hero wouldn't be pleasant ones. Now, I actually did quite enjoy the force projection that we saw in the finale of The Last Jedi, but even then I did feel a bit shortchanged, as it's not really him going out in a blaze of glory like Obi-Wan and Anakin. The rise of Skywalker did bring him back through the use of Force Ghosts, but for many it seemed like the last memory of Luke would be him going out on his back as a shell of his former self. That is, until The Mandalorian came along and brought the character back in a big way that felt like not only redemption for him, but also the franchise itself. Now up top, I'll say that I absolutely love both seasons of the show. I think the first one did a really good job of recapturing the feel of the Star Wars universe, and it did so without relying too heavily on fan service. We thought that we were getting a wholly original story, and thus when Season 2 came along, it made the inclusion of the expanded lore characters seem even more overwhelming. There was of course Cobb Vanth, Boba Fett, Ahsoka Tano, and lastly Luke Skywalker, who showed up in the final episode to take Grogu with him. Now throughout the season, we watched as Mando attempted to locate the Jedi in order for Grogu to begin his training. At the time, there was tons of theories flying around that he'd be hooking up with Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, or any number of Jedi that were left out in the galaxy. There was even some that said Mace Windu. I'm not joking, go back and watch the tapes. Now very few people believed that it was Luke, and whenever the fan theory got suggested to me, I quickly shut it down because I truly thought that 1, it would cost way too much to bring Mark Hamill back and de-age him, 2, that he was done with the franchise, and 3, that it would have leaked. Disney did an outstanding job of keeping it a secret, and as Luke's X-Wing slowly rolled into the frame, I have to admit that I couldn't have been happier to be wrong. At this point in the show, the heroes were at their lowest points, and completely surrounded by Moff Gideon's forces, it seemed like all hope had been lost. However, hope is a theme that is laced throughout the Star Wars saga, and seeing Luke's X-Wing flying to the hangar made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up on end. I remember it like it was yesterday, and rewatching the clip brought everything flooding back. Now what the creative team did brilliantly is that they hid Luke's face and still kept us sitting up throughout the entire scene, desperate to see the reveal. Even though the black cloak gave it away, showing his arrival through security cameras was a super smart way to keep us glued to the scene. It allowed the moment to build up, and hearing motifs from Luke's theme laced throughout helped to create an anticipation for what would be one of the biggest Star Wars moments ever. Finally, we got a look up close and personal, and the black cloaked figure cut through all of the Dark Troopers with ease as he moved towards the bridge. You have to remember that the Dark Troopers were by far the most fearsome foes in The Mandalorian at this point, and seeing these Terminator-esque enemies getting cut down like they were battle droids showed how powerful that Luke was. Now on a meta level, Luke's arrival and the way that he travels through the corridors is purposely shot to resemble his father's attack in Rogue One. One of the best Darth Vader scenes of all time had him cutting up the rebel forces, and it's easily the high point of that movie that feels like the perfect ending for the film. Playing those scenes side by side, we see how Luke and his dad share a lot of things in common, as several of their moves mirror one another. It's sort of like poetry, they rhyme, and just in the same way that his father crushed someone using his hand, Luke does the same thing with a machine. Now just in the same way that the scene brings us the action, it also brings us the satisfaction of bawling like a baby. Everyone took the mick out of Star Wars theory for crying when Luke showed up, but don't lie, you did it too, didn't you? Search your feelings, you know it to be true. Now Luke brought with him not only a thrilling fight, but watching Mando hand over his surrogate son packed a punch that's really hard to forget. Over the 2 seasons, the pair had bonded, and though Mando didn't want to give him away, he knew that he'd have a better life with the Jedi than he could provide. Well, as long as he doesn't attend school at the same time as Kylo, but their goodbye is a heartbreaking one, and the Mandalorian creed that Din Djarin was a part of were instructed not to remove their helmets under any circumstances. It's something that Din wrestled with throughout both seasons, and it was only when it was absolutely necessary that he decided to take it off. However, here he broke the rules and removed it to say farewell to Grogu face to face for what may be the final time. Though he said he'd see him again, we don't know if that's going to be true or not, and if this was to be the last ever Mandalorian season, it's the perfect way to say goodbye. Seeing the little guy reach out and touch his cheek for the first time was a heartbreaking moment, and his dear old dad Din told him not to be afraid. Though the pair didn't want to go, they knew they had to, and R2-D2 roamed in to give Grogu someone else to bond with. Luke picked up Grogu and placed him on his shoulder as he walked down the hallway, and this too carries a lot of meaning with it. This over-the-shoulder shot is something that we've seen echoed throughout both seasons, namely when Din was carrying Grogu over his, and it perfectly mirrored those moments to show that he had a new guardian. Luke's parting words were "May the Force be with you," and not only was this the character saying it to Din, but it was also him very much saying it to the audience who had been desperate to see this side of Luke once more. Though the de-aging was imperfect and there were a lot of flaws in it, as a viewer it's easy to look past these parts because of the magic within the scene that brings back exactly why we all fell in love with Star Wars. This is a franchise that's had its ups and downs over the years, but scenes like this served as a reminder of why it's still so popular and why people stick with it throughout their entire lives. Sure, Star Wars will have bad movies, bad characters, and head-scratching twists and turns sometimes, but it's moments like this that we as a fan base hold out for, and it makes all the disappointments worth it just to get these glimmers of hope. This was a perfect moment, and not only was it a joyful one, but it was also bittersweet in many regards. We know that Mando has just lost the one person that turned him from a hired gun into an actual human, but beyond that it leads to an uncertain future. As we touched upon earlier, Luke's Jedi Academy has somewhat of a tragic history, and just in the same way that Grogu survived Order 66, he's likely going to have to deal with the rise of Kylo Ren. There's an incredible mix of emotions that come from this, but even with all that, it's difficult not to get caught up in this moment. The music is perfect, the build up to the scene is perfect, the way that Luke mirrors his father's actions is absolutely incredible, and at the heart of it is an emotional farewell between a father and son. It really is one of the best moments that Star Wars has to offer, and it's a scene that I absolutely love. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so make sure you comment below and let me know. If you agree with us, then please hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe as we do videos like this each and every week, and we'd love to have you around. In case you don't know, I'm your host Paul, aka Lukewarm Skywalker, and we will be covering Star Wars Visions next week, so I'd love to see you then. Now we are running a competition and giving away 3 copies of Zack Snyder's DC Trilogy on the 30th of September, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is drop a comment below with your thoughts on the scene. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of What If Episode 6, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over the entire thing from top to bottom, and it's definitely worth checking out, so I'll see you over there right now, you better. If not, then thank you for sitting through this video. I've been Paul, you take care of yourself, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.